Get ready.
Cool.
All right, cool. What is going on, everybody? Oh, I forgot to turn my light on. So, what's going on, everybody? We're back at another episode, another stream. Let's get the marketing out of the way. My worst part of my job. I am streaming from not by one, but two platforms. YouTube is my main, and Facebook, of course. Reach me out any shape, way, or form from there. And make sure you hit the like, share, subscribe. That's a tongue twister. And if you want to donate to the channel, please do. Please do. It'll be appreciated. So, the biggest showdown of any movie guru is, who is the better spy? Is it James Bond or is it Ethan Hunt? So, I want to bring my guest in right away. Kelly, my man, what is going on?
Hello, Pete. How are you today?
Not bad, not bad. So, you're my movie expert, and I already know the answer to this. I got to ask it. What is your experience of James Bond, first of all?
James Bond's been with me my whole life. I have a lot of fond memories back in the day before you could stream whatever you wanted. James Bond would come on TV. You'd stop whatever you were doing because you couldn't stop it. You couldn't rewind it. You watch it with your. I watched it with my parents a lot. James Bond's been around since '62. I was born in '68, so reruns would come on television in the mid '70s, and that was it. He was the man. How suave, debonair, action packed, right? Great with the ladies, great theme songs. The James Bond franchise has endured for reasons.
Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the one of the longest movie franchise? Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I should have known how many movies it is at this point. 30 plus movies.
I'll look right now.
Yeah, look it up. I know the first one, believe it or not, Casino Royale was really the first one, but it was more of a comedy. It was designed to be a comedy. And then they started, taking it seriously and trying to make a good film. A lot of people, it's funny, people say, they're based on books, so that helps. But except for Casino Royale, when it was redone with Daniel Craig, most of the movies, yes, they take the titles of Ian Fleming's books, but the plots have nothing to do with the books at all. The character's the same, but the plots don't have anything to do with it. Like, for instance, The Man with the Golden Gun, right? Roger Moore, really, really a fun movie. In the movie, the Man with the Golden Gun is the villain, and in the book, the Man with the Golden Gun actually wound up being James Bond. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. They just take the title and run with it. And a lot of the times the movies are based. They come up with action sequences and then they write a movie around it,
Really?
Which is part of the reason why. I mean, let's face it. These action franchises, they're formulaic for a reason, right? You're going to have your opening sequence, which is going to be some sort of stunt, some sort of reveal. You're going to get the music, the song, and then you're going to get into the real adventure. But it's always a megalomaniac. Maybe not always, but 90% of the James Bond films, someone's trying to do something to take over the world. And that's always been the James Bond thing, which varies a little bit from the Mission Impossible stuff. But yeah, James Bond growing up, love the films. I own every single one of them on Blu-ray. One of these days, I'll get around to convincing my wife to watch through them all with me. But yeah, good series.
So right now, as we counted, 2001 was the last James Bond movie to date. It would add 28 movies.
28, 2000, no, not 2001.
2021 was the last James Bond movie.
Oh, 2021, yeah. No Time to Die.
Correct. So
yeah, that's the final Roger Craig film.
Yes. Before we move on to the next question for you, who's your favorite James Bond?
It's interesting. My least favorite is George Lazenby, even though he was probably in one of the best written films, which was on His Majesty's Secret Service. He was a guy who was a model. Sean Connery had said he didn't want to do the roles anymore, and he kind of strong-armed his way into the film. He was terrible. He was a terrible actor. Film's really well written, though. One of the better written Bond films. So he's definitely out. I kind of like Dalton when he came along because he was a change of pace. All of a sudden, it was so much more serious. But I do love Sean Connery. I grew up on the Roger Moore. Unfortunately, some of his later movies, like View to a Kill, he was way too old for it. He was too old. The concept was too old. Like it didn't work.
A lot of people loved Sean Connery as James Bond.
Yeah, because he was the one who made it popular. He was suave. Roger Moore was wink wink. He was clever, but Sean Connery was suave, and you felt like he could outsmart you. Now, that's not to say that I think the Daniel Craig movies, that run is about some of the best of the films, some modern filmmaking, that kind of thing. But I'm a sucker for Live and Let Die. I think it's the best theme song. Some will say that Carly Simon in The Spy Who Loved Me is the best theme song. I get it. But I love Live and Let Die, and it's one of the few that they used that theme throughout the entire film. That was the first Roger Moore film. Live and Let Die had also a young Jane Seymour in it as the female. That's the one that takes place. It is one of the many times they've gone down into the bayou, and you had them dealing with voodoo, and that Bond runs on alligators to get away at one point. So I'm a sucker for that film. But I think that the Daniel Craig films, really, really well done. I like the last one. I mean, spoiler alert right here. If you have not seen the last one and you don't want to know anything about it, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to turn me off at this point. Because
before we
your
move
5
on,
seconds, 5 seconds are over.
Find something interesting. Shane, whatever his name is, the first James Bond.
Sean Connery.
Yeah, he took a break and he came back at one point.
Yeah, he came back because, and the name of the film he came back for was called Never Say Never. And that's because when he left the James Bond franchise, he said he will never come back and play James Bond again because he was typecast and he felt frustrated by that. And so when he did come back, of course, the name of the movie was Never Say Never Again. Just a kind of a nod to, hey, I guess I'm coming back. And the film is about an aging Bond. But really, if you take the plot, it is a carbon copy of Goldfinger. They basically lifted the plot of Goldfinger, which up to that point was one of their most popular films they had done, and basically gave you the same plot for that film. But yeah, he came back to the franchise.
So what I found very interesting with these actors. So the first two James Bonds ones were like the longest ones. They had like a 7 movie stretch movies almost. Then The next one after those two was
Timothy Dalton.
He did 3. According to my count here, I might be off.
Timothy Dalton did 3, or did he do 2? I thought he did 2.
Hang on, I'll tell you right now the exact number.
Living Daylights and can't remember the name of the other one.
A View to Kill was first.
No,
one?
that's Roger Moore.
Oh, yeah,
View to Kill.
I'm sorry.
That was Roger Moore's final one.
Living Daylights 1, and the next one after that was, you're right, you only did 2. License to Kill. Then
License to Kill.
One of my favorite Bonds came into it.
Pierce Bronson. You're going to tell me Pierce Bronson, aren't you?
Yeah. The reason, here's the thing. My dad loved them so much, the movies, and he was like, oh, fan back then. I never got into it. I was too young. I was way too young to understand it. If I go back now, I'll appreciate the movies 100%.
Yeah.
So back then I didn't like them. So before we move in, I got to bring him in. You know who I'm going to talk about? We got to salute our president here. Let me get him in here. We got to get his theme song going. Hang on. Let me adjust some pictures here. He knows it's coming up. Let me get him in here.
Trying to get a proper salute going. I'll try to have my back up straight, nice and straight. Good salute.
Get his theme song going.
I'm not really in the Army. I don't have to keep my arm like this, do I?
Do we two fingers or 4? Which one is it?
He gave me the 2.
I'll give you the 1.
Okay, we'll
give me the 1.
We're the 1. All right. Paul, my man. Welcome.
What's up, Paul?
Sure. What's good? Hey, man, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
See you.
So you just caught us right in the beginning, the juicy part. We're talking about James Bond right now before we get into the Am I Mission Impossible. So we're talking about who do we think personally is the favorite James Bond. And I was saying right now, go ahead, Kelly. You want to say it? It's torture for you.
It's not torture. Like, I get it. He's a big fan of the Pierce Bronson. I liked Pierce Bronson. He's a bit of a mix. He was a throwback to Roger Moore, closer to Roger Moore than he was to Sean Connery. Except for GoldenEye, I thought the Pierce Bronson films were not particularly good. He was the best thing in those films. I thought GoldenEye was a pretty good Bond movie. But
again,
the rest of them,
I was such a good fan of these movies. I started appreciating them when that generation came in. Now the new actor, I keep forgetting his fucking name. Where is he?
Daniel Craig.
I think he's a good James Bond too, but he's a different take to it. He's more like a badass James Bond versus like the playboy, double I spy mission kind of thing. I think all of them are good. I like how they ended his series. But one memory I remember him is, I think it's hilarious actually. When I can't remember what it was, a commercial, and he was literally jumping out of a plane skydiving with the Queen, and I thought that was a great commercial at the time. And fun fact, and kid, I think you know this. Most people know this probably actually is all the actors have to be British to play that role. Or am I wrong, Kelly?
No, I mean Sean Connery is Scottish, so yeah. So I know that that's something that they always prefer, but I'm not. I've heard something about that, but I'm not sure that that's kind of thing. What do you know about that, Paul?
Yeah, you're certainly right on. Hey, take it easy, Arpane. All right, come on back when you're ready. I think it's preferred, but certainly, and also George Lazenby was Australian.
Oh, right, Lazenby, yeah.
Right, so I think that's, if all things being equal, I think they like it when a British person plays the character, but again, you have those, you've had those exceptions, Lazenby being probably the most glaring and the most controversial and also in terms of his performance. I love the, I didn't necessarily it didn't grab me initially, but just the more times I've watched it, I've have an affinity for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I thought he certainly could have, if he would have played his cards right. I don't know, he just got full of himself or something. He could have done, I think, at least one more Bond film had he not gone off the deep end or started reading his own press clippings.
Well, I was talking to Pete about that earlier. Lazenby, not my favorite Bond, probably my least favorite Bond, but On Her Majesty's Secret Service is one of my favorite Bond films. I think it's one of the best written of all the Bond films, and certainly it's one of the ones that humanized Bond prior to the Daniel Craig ones. That humanized Bond to a point. I mean, he gets married at the end.
Absolutely,
and his wife is killed.
He breaks down at the end. Yeah, I mean,
it's
has
great.
This air of invincibility, but he obviously he's most vulnerable. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. I thought it was a very well written film.
No question.
You guys, before we go in, let's welcome Paul to Arpain, Chef Arpain. First of all, you good, man? I don't care about the show. You're popping a lung down. Like, I'll make sure you're not giving birth through the mouth from in here.
Nah, man, just this liquid went down the wrong pipe, man. At the wrong time.
We want you around for another 100 years, man. I don't want nothing to happen to you. I'm like, I'll send Paul, keep your mouth to mouth if we have to. Hey, you volunteered, Paul. You know. So, okay. So you caught us talking about the James Bond. Who's your favorite James Bond, Arpain?
Gosh, man. Yeah, man, it's like a loaded question, man. Listen, I was a big Sean Connery fan because I grew up with the dude because I'm older. He was my first dude. He was, the thing I like about it the best, I think they were able to get away with all the shit that you can't do now. He was getting some ass. He was a misogynist.
He would slap a woman.
Yeah, he was just a man. He was like a swashbuckler. He could do, he was all the things that you cannot even make a movie with now, pretty much. And I miss those days. Yeah, shoot, they even intimating all kinds of shit about Bond now. But I liked him. But you know what? I liked a lot of the Bonds. Let me see. It'd be better for me to say who did I like the least. Because the Bonds, they pick some good guys. The casting guys pick some good actors to play Bond. God, I can't even. Daniel Craig, I didn't like him as much as a lot of the other guys. But yeah, but Sean Connery was my best. And then I like Pierce Brosnan too. In his heyday, I thought he was all right. And then, of course, this last dude, Daniel Craig, because he seemed like he's an athlete, so and that's my top three.
Pierce Brosnan was originally supposed to take over after Roger Moore.
That's right.
But he got denied because he was doing Remington Steele.
That is right. 1984, 1985,
Yeah. And so when they had the opportunity, because I thought Timothy Dalton, it was a serious turn. I thought, and if you watch those films versus the Pierce Brosnan, forget about GoldenEye, because like I said, that's a good film. But the rest of them are all the megalomaniacs. Tomorrow Never Dies. What a terrible that's Tomorrow Never Dies. View to a Kill. Those two to me are like. Yeah. They're on the pedestal of the worst.
I think because you're doing too much. I think for most of the Bonds, their first maybe one or two films were probably their best. And then they tried to get a little more juice out the squeeze, and then they tried to do too much. So, I mean, like for me, I think I would have to say Pierce is probably my Daniel Craig is probably my favorite Bond because I think he's consistently delivered in the role from film to film. If you were to say, build me a Bond like a clone of a James Bond, Pierce Brosnan fits the mold. Like that's who you want James Bond to be. I mean, the look, the swag, all of that. Sean again got old. At the end, Roger Moore, his just became silly. I mean, it was almost like they were doing like The Spy Who Shagged Me, like the
parodies, yeah.
I mean, it became spoofs more so than taking the film seriously. But if you look at Roger Moore, I mean, again, The Man with the Golden Gun and before that Live and Let Die, those might have been his favorites. Now, I love The Spy Who Loved Me. That might be, I may give him like a third film, Spy Who Loved Me. Then Moonraker, that became like Star Wars, and they just went just all over. It's like, so again, it's almost like you shouldn't have a Bond actor past 3 films, or the studio needs to try to keep it going, but they try to add more sizzle, and it's like, look, it's done. So it's like you can only do so much with a particular character.
because before you jumped on, me and Kerry was just talking about that. It was only 2 actors that did like 7 movies. And I'm like, holy shit. I personally say, you say 3, I say 4. That's like tops should be 4. Nothing past 4 movies should be it. I think they just at the point they're like, hey, they're aging obviously during the movies because I think they do it every 4 years. The series
usually every 3. Well, from growing up, it was like every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, now it takes longer.
Because Dr. No came out in 64, 62. Then you had one in 64, 66. I think 67 was, I think.
I'm actually right? I got schedule here. So the first one is 62, 63, 64, 65, 67. Was one every year almost at first.
They were doing them every year, yeah.
Yeah, 70, 71. Then went to every third year, 73. Then it went back to 74. Then it skipped a year, 77. 79
yeah,
after that. 81.
Yeah.
83.
83 and 85, yeah.
Yeah, 83. No, it's 2 and 83. Holy shit.
No, well, that's the non-canonical.
2 different.
Never say never again. That's considered a non-canonical Bond film, but
yeah.
Then it was 85, like you said, 87, 89. Then my Bond came out in 95, excuse me, 97, 99, 01, 02, and then 06, 08, 12, and 15 and 21 was the last one of his, or up to date. So I like how that timeline is now. Like, you give him a break for movies, and only like you're only allowed to do so many. Like, I'm out, I'm done after that. And it's also, well, you having doing James Bond and Walker is coming around. And like, Arpane's going to outrun him at that point. He's running around. No offense, Arpane. It's just like, all right, let's get to this next one. All right, I'll let Kelly go take this off first. Mission Impossible.
Well, hang on. Before we move on, let me ask you guys a question. Now, I know, with the last one, they certainly had a bit of a finality to it with him dying. But if they were, and again, and I don't know how many books are left, because I think the best Bonds are clearly the ones that go off of the Ian Fleming novels. But if there was going to be a new James Bond, and again, forget I don't want to go into DEIRP. I don't want to stir any controversy or anything like that. Should it be black? Should it be a woman or whatever? Traditional classic James Bond. If you were going to do a movie in 2024-25, who is your James Bond? Who would you want to see play James Bond? Of a known actor, or maybe someone we may not know of, and have to Google him or whatever. But I'll just offer mine. I thought Tom Hiddleston, Loki, I think he would have been a good James Bond had they wanted to do a reboot. I think he has the swag to do that. If they want to make him the new James Bond, I would have loved to have seen that. But what do you guys say? Who should play him next?
Go ahead, Payne.
I like that one, but I can't even think about it. In terms of some of the actors. I know I would want him to be a man, that's for sure. But I can't remember. I'm not into the movies where I know all the recent actors' names.
Right.
Somebody young, because they haven't been making all these.
James is still around. I mean, you're talking about probably 35, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about.
They're not going to get a 20-something.
No, I'm talking about somebody in their 30s. Somebody's a little seasoned. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of some names that would fit. That would fit the bill. And it's not because there's none out there. It's just that I'm not really up on all the actors' names.
Right.
Like some of the movies I watch, gosh,
At this moment,
I'm trying to think.
At this right moment, as we speak, what they're announcing here is Aaron Jason. I may mispronounce his name wrong.
What did he play in before? That's what I need to know.
He played in Kick-Ass. He played Bullet Train. He's supposed to be the next James Bond. He played in Godzilla. I know you know who I'm talking about, Paul. Now.
He's the guy in. He's been in all the Marvel movies.
Yes.
Right. He was the speed guy. I guess he was.
That's Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Aaron Taylor.
Yes, he's supposed to be the next Bond.
Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's who you're referring to.
Right.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the next Bond, quote unquote, right now, but it's not official. It hasn't been announced yet. You know who I wanted to, but he's too old now. Is Jason Statham.
Jason Statham.
Yeah.
Maybe a Bond villain. Villain. Here's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of really. I like your Tom Hiddleston thought process there. I mean, I don't know that he has the physicality of that, but like.
I don't know. Pierce Brosnan did. He wasn't. Pierce
that's
Brosnan
what I'm saying. There's ways to get around that, and he's just a great actor. I think that's a really kind of inspired choice. And the flip side of it is, you could take someone like Hemsworth. Now, you could say he's too muscular, but that's Hemsworth as Thor. If you take Hemsworth as he appeared in Star Trek, the reboot, he appeared as Captain Kirk's dad. Mm-hmm. And he's in the first 10 minutes of the film and he dies, right? Yeah. You take that guy who is slimmed down, but he's got a comedic sense. He definitely has the physicality of it. He's Australian, but they've done that before.
What about Henry Cavill? If you're gonna go big, like that.
Listen, I love Henry Cavill.
Right.
I love him. I thought he was a great addition to the Mission Impossible series. Right. I love the guy.
Yeah.
I got
one for you. The guy who plays Cersei's brother, the incestuous brother.
Lannister?
Yeah. That dude, I liked him.
Actually, that's not bad.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah.
I think he would be good because he had a lot of, even in the show, he had a lot of wit. He had size, and he was ruthless.
Yeah.
Okay. I
can't. It's not bad.
Two things. So
I think he wouldn't have been bad. He would not be bad.
Our official, unofficial, pain in the ass cheerleader tonight. He says, Jamie Dorman. She thinks it'll be a good one, and that's not a bad one.
That's a neat choice. That's a neat choice.
One. I'm gonna stir a pot with our pain here. Is the one who this guy played in Avengers, Thor exactly. I think he could pull her off. I can't pronounce his name.
Chris Hemsworth.
I'm sorry?
Chris Hemsworth.
That was Chris Hemsworth, yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's one of
the guy, Keepkeeper, that with the big sword. I keep forgetting the name he played in. He played Heimdall. He played in Thor.
Oh, Heimdall. Idris Elba.
He's already in his 50s already.
Yeah. I'm saying when he was younger. If he was younger, I'm saying.
I'm saying right now. I'm saying if they're gonna cast the next Bond film in the next couple years, who you picking? So it's got to be a current.
Here's the thing,
current
Paul.
And somebody who can be there for a while.
I was gonna say, here's the problem, Paul, is that if you're gonna, and they're gonna redo these movies, right? You just had a series of films with Bond where you took him from flashbacking to his first kill, kind of his first mission, through his career, and then you kill him. That's like killing off Batman or Superman to me. You just don't do that.
Right.
Like, how are you going to tell this next story? Like, you got two choices. Bond's established, or take him back even further and let's see him on his actual first mission, his first kill, and make him really young. And
I thought that's what Casino Royale was. I mean,
that's my point. Like, where do you go from here once you've given us Casino Royale through No Time to Die?
Mm-hmm.
What story are you going to tell?
Well, that's why I was asking about how many of the Ian Fleming novels have been made into films. Are there any left? There were like 40. I thought there were like 40 novels or 40 stories.
The problem, Paul, is that they just used the titles. They didn't use the plots from those books. Back in that day, they just took the title and then they created their own plot from the title.
Mm-hmm.
It's famously, I grew up with that storyline of how they even to the point of like the man with the golden gun is a bad guy in the film. It was actually Bond in the book. Like they just took the storyline. So what they were good at though back then, and if you think about it, Dr. No is not an action film. I mean, it's not. It's a spy film.
Yes.
It's not an action film. There's some action in it
Right.
for 1962.
Right.
But, there's a reason why these movies take now years, because the expectation of the spectacle of the action is, overwhelms the rest of the film. So a lot of times they create here's the 4 major set pieces we're going to have. Now let's create a plot to go with it. But I'm wondering what they'd have to do is they'd have to go back to the spy thriller. And
I was about to say, yeah.
And I
think
Mission Impossible's the blueprint.
Right.
It is.
Well, which one are you talking about? Because I just saw Godzilla X Kong today.
Oh, did you like it?
It was okay. It was. I mean, comparatively, when you had Godzilla -1, which was again an Oscar-worthy film. I mean, it was just forget Godzilla. It was just a great film.
Right.
It definitely it showed me that sometimes less is better. And so again, if you want to make a film, and again, we're going to get into the Mission Impossible a little bit later, but you don't need everything blowing up to be a good film. You know what I mean? Is the acting compelling? Are the characters, are you drawn to them? You can do a lot with less. And I thought Casino Royale, I don't think that was a huge action. I mean, the chase at the airport was probably the most action in the film. But again, the tenseness of the poker game had you in there, like, again, reminded you of those 60s films. So it can be done. But everyone's mindset, at least on the American side, is more explosions, more action, more superhuman feats. So yeah, I would love it if they went back and just reboot, but again with a more suspenseful thriller type of movie, more so than a summer blockbuster. So, because remember, in James Bond films are traditionally released around Thanksgiving. So they're not even trying to compete in the summer, the April, May, June summer blockbuster list. But all the movies now, it's like every movie has to have, something blowing up. And
well, that's just part of the issue, right? We can't go back to the old movie making. Every movie has to convey some kind of message. Even when you start out, asking about who's my favorite guy, we talked about like the DEI thing. I want to go back to the future. They got to find writers and show writers that don't give a shit about the modern. Go back to the fans who really love Bond, and give them what they want. You give them a guy with a license to kill, right? And I don't care if he's a white guy, right? I'd rather not have the angst of trying to re-put him as something else. Just leave him as a white dude,
right?
You know what? And just let him have a license to kill. Let him to be a little bit, close to be the anti-hero, because his heart is always in the right place, but he got to make some bad decisions from time to time. And for a man like that, let him, treat women the way a man like that would treat women. All right. When he had to be nice, he was nice. When he had to bet a woman to get to where he went, he was going to bet him. None of this bullshit that he couldn't be a real man because we're going to hurt somebody's in 2024 feelings. I'd rather just try to see if we can get that shit out of the movies. And just go back to the future.
It's interesting because everything that we talk about in regards to the Bond, and to me, where Bond has a lot of its problems moving forward, to me, it's what Mission Impossible does so well.
Okay.
The Mission Impossible series, and I've spoken about this a couple of times, but I recently went back. I saw each Mission Impossible movie as they came out in the theaters, basically one time. Like the movie, I remember 3 in particular I really, really enjoyed. I thought they did a great job with 3 at the time. And going back and rewatching them all, which is what I did just before 7 came out, I couldn't believe the thread of the storyline, how basically from 3 on, they're all connected. Each story picks up from the last one. The repercussions are there. But what they do so well is everything's not on Cruise. Yes, Cruise is the star. There's no doubt about it. There's great action sequences. But he has a cast of characters that keep growing. He's got Ving Rhames, who's terrific as Luther. You got Rebecca Ferguson, who's Ilsa. You got Simon Pegg, who's Benji, and adds comedic aspects to it. They do a great job of allowing that cast to have some time as well. And so it doesn't have to be, it's not all about, and in fact, Ethan Hunt, I mean, he has a love interest because he has a wife in the films, and then he basically leaves his wife to protect her. Doesn't really have a love interest in the films. Doesn't need it.
That's fine.
You know, and then you see the last one that they just did, Dead Reckoning. I thought it was a fantastic film. You know, it's funny, Paul, you were talking about big explosive set pieces. You know, the Fast and the Furious franchise defies logic at the time, right? I mean, it can be fun, but like it makes no sense, right? But, you know, what Mission Impossible does, yes, Cruise hanging onto the side of an airplane. But that's Cruise hanging on the side of an airplane. I don't care how well he's strapped to that plane. He's actually hanging on the side of the airplane. Cruise jumping off on a motorcycle off a cliff, parachuting down off the cliff. That was real. And after he did it the first time, he went back and did it another like 12 times to get the takes right. Jumping off and parachuting off a motorcycle. The end of that sequence, if you haven't seen the film, makes what I love about Mission Impossible, because it's not the graceful arrival of our hero into the scene that you think it's going to be. Let me just put it that way. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'm not going to say anything, but it's one of the things that I think that they do so well. And the action sequences are there, but you care about the characters. They put these secondary characters who they've built up so that you like them, and then they put those characters in jeopardy. Do a great job with that. Right. With Bond, it's just
I don't know. I may not be as I don't know if I agree with they sort of give the supporting cast as much equal time. I think it's still.
They don't.
Yeah. Now again, speaking of Mission Impossible, I go up in our pain. You probably back me up. I go all the way back.
Yeah.
I go back to the series.
Yeah.
Peter Graves, Greg Morris. Yeah. You know, I go back to those guys. That was yes. Yeah. Martin Landau, Barbara Bain. I mean, that was an espionage series. Yeah. That was covert. That was, you know, again, not a lot of bombs or explosions. The main guy, you know, Jim was not you know, an action guy. He wasn't a main guy. He picked his team. Okay, I need my guys to do this, and y'all go out and do the job. What I'm gonna sit back. I'm sort of quarterbacking from my office or whatever. He wasn't going to be, you know, throwing. So I think it took me a while to appreciate the Mission Impossible movie series because they went away from that, or the fact that they made Jim essentially a bad guy in the first film. And I'm like,
I didn't like that either.
That's what I'm saying. So the fact that they changed the premise of the show from, again, a true sort of team concept to the series essentially focusing on Ethan, that took me a while to get beyond, because I was so married to the original series that it's like, well, they're trying to do James Bond now. This is Mission Impossible was not, and again, they were back in the 60s. So again, when Sean Connery was doing his thing, Mission Impossible was on. They were in separate lanes. They weren't trying to do Bond over again. It was like apples and oranges. Now you're trying to do this crossover, and initially I wasn't feeling probably the first two movies. I just wasn't. As I watched them, I had to disconnect. It was like a hard disconnect. I had to pull the plug out from any association that I had from the series that I loved. And that was a hard divorce for me in order to come to that point before I could start enjoying the movies as their own product. So when I was able to do that, I could do it. But initially I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You know, so,
I got one for you. For you, Mr. Bennett. I was going to name my first daughter Cinnamon.
Get out.
I swear. I was. I was crazy. That's what I'm talking about. I was going to name my first daughter Cinnamon.
Wow.
So
it didn't happen, but you know.
The difference about Mission Impossible movies, the first couple of these was a long between. And I felt, again, I have no evidence to prove this. I didn't feel like when they first did the first one, it wasn't a real hit.
It was a hit.
It was it?
Oh yeah, it was a hit. Yeah, and you know, when it first came out, I mean, there was the divisive nature, exactly like Paul said, right? And I wasn't a big fan of the Mission Impossible TV series because it was a
What?
let me explain. I wasn't a big fan growing up of the Mission Impossible series because it came out at a time period when I was the wrong age for it. And so, but I was offended, not even being a big fan. And when I say big fan, I like the show, but I wasn't a big fan of it. I was offended by the fact that they made the lead the villain in the first film. Like, I was just like, what are you doing? But, you know, consider the director was Brian De Palma, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to deceive the audience. And look, what did they do? They really did give you a villain that you didn't expect. Although when you go back and rewatch it, I don't know that it's not filmed in a way that you kind of expect. But, you know, they did try to give you a good spy, who's deceiving who kind of thing. And that theme has run through all the films, like kind of the who's the mole, who's the bad guy. You know, there's the bad guy out there we got to face, and then there's the bad guy within our organization. And that seems to be kind of the running theme that goes through a lot of movies these days. In particular, the Mission Impossible series did that as well. But that was a big hit. The second one with John Woo, when John Woo came in and directed it, I didn't like the film. Upon rewatching it, I liked it better.
Again, it was like they went Matrix. I mean, the fight scenes at the end, the hanging in midair with the kicks, and I'm like,
it's not as bad when you go back and rewatch it. It's not as bad as I remembered it.
right.
But for me, and even like I said, when I went to the movie theaters and I saw these movies, I saw them every time they came out. I liked them. I thought they were really well done. 3, I loved at the time.
Yeah.
I really liked the films.
Yeah.
But going back and rewatching them back to back, they're so watchable. They're so well done. And the quality does not go down. You don't have a dip in quality. You don't have a dip in action. You don't have a dip in suspense. And the last one I thought to me, it's probably the best one.
Very good.
It's very, very good.
It's right.
And they got to be applaud that. I mean, you're talking nearly 30 years of keeping the Bond films. I mean, certainly there's been up and down quality. We talked about that earlier. That, you know, I would say would you say maybe half the Bond films are good?
Yeah.
I mean, really good, like half, or would you?
Yeah, or less, or less. I'd say
less,
that, right. You know, but really good, less than half.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things about the Mission Impossible is that you had to get home and watch the mission, the little preamble to tell them what the mission was.
Exactly. Yeah.
You had to be, no matter what you had to be. That's what made you go and watch it. You had to see what the mission was, because if you missed that, you'd have to spend the rest of the time trying to find out. There wasn't no tape recorder to go back and rewind that back then.
Right.
So you had to do it.
And that's how the first movie got you, because they followed the script like to a T. I mean, they had the tape recorder. Good luck, Jim. At the end, it's like, okay, this is give me vibes, and then they switch it on me. I'm like, I just did not.
That's your challenge. Go back and rewatch these movies.
So
that's
Kelly,
your challenge.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I literally went from I like the movies guy to rewatching them and going, wow, I just forget from one film to the next, because the plot stays throughout the whole course from 3 on. You forget kind of, I don't know, I just forget the plot, and I'm just there along the ride for the action. But when you watch it together and you have the whole storyline together, man, I was so vested in rewatching this stuff. Like I so much so that it was only this past year, and I'm going to rewatch them all again.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do the same thing, to be honest.
So, do you feel these, at least Mission Impossible, age very well for the movies?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in mind, look, we're not going back to the 60s, right? Like you are with James Bond. One, I think? But 96 was probably the first one, I think, right? Was it 96 or was it earlier than that?
96.
I just lost the page. Give me 1 second.
It was 96. I got it up here. Yeah.
Oh, you okay. Yeah, 96. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so 96. I mean, modern filmmaking, etc. But once again, it's a lot of fun to just see. Oh, okay, what's Cruise going to do this time? And to know. And here's the thing about it: when you watch these shots, we know today with deep fakes and everything else, they can get away with anything.
Right,
like it doesn't have to be. But that's the reason why he goes on these press junket tours, and they make a big deal of the stunt because they know they could fake it if they wanted to. But Cruise refuses to fake it, and I think the guy's a nut job on a lot of different ideas. Like on a personal level, not my jam. But from a filmmaking standpoint, the guy knows he just wants to entertain you.
Yeah.
And how many Cruise films haven't you seen? I mean, I've seen almost everything he's done.
Yeah. And have you ever been disappointed?
I didn't see like Eyes Wide Shut and whatnot.
Even the ones I could have missed, I've seen. Yeah.
And some of the ones that I missed, and I'm just like, it's not a movie I'm going to be interested in. I catch it later on, cable or something or streaming. And you're like, wow, Vanilla Sky was one of those movies that I didn't have an interest in seeing. I didn't care about the marketing. And then you watch the movie and you're like, oh my God, what a great film. It's a great film.
You like Vanilla Sky?
Oh, I loved it. I thought the ending was great. That was great.
Maybe I gotta go back and watch it. Maybe it was over my head, man. I'm telling you.
A lot of people give shit Tom Cruise, like he goes, the way he plays these characters, the same thing you see over and over. But guess what? He sells tickets. And
he's a man.
I have not seen a movie I'm disappointed ever with Tom Cruise. So far.
He's got one of the greatest running styles ever, man. He can run.
Yeah, man. He
can run, man. The boy can run, man. I'm telling you.
And there's some sort of clause that he can't be on screen running with another person at the same time or something like.
Oh, he did it with Jamie Foxx. When Jamie Foxx was running like a girl, he was chasing him down in Collateral. Jamie Foxx is running chasing him. That's man, you got no chance getting away from him, man.
Right.
You gotta give credit for Cruise. Like at his age, he still looks fucking good.
I will say, in Dead Reckoning, it was the first time I thought that he's starting to look, a little older. Yeah, his face is it's getting a little puffier. That kind of thing.
50-something, right?
He's older than us. I don't know.
I think he's
60.
I think he was born in 57. So I think he was born in 57.
61.
Yeah.
61. Okay.
He's 61.
So he's born in 62.
62.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get into questions
consistent. And honestly, one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies is one of his early ones. All the Right Moves. I don't know if you saw that.
All the Right Moves.
That was one of my favorite. That's still this day is one of my favorite football films.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh.
That was it. It was great. It's not because I'm a Steelers fan, but I'm just saying But it was a good film. I mean, just the grit of high school before what was that? The high school football movie came out in the 90s.
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights. I thought that gave as good as it got. Compared to that, which I thought was a good film also. But I thought All the Right Moves really captured the grit of just the area, the town, how the importance of football to the community. I just thought they landed the plane there really well. And I think Craig T. Nelson as the coach, I think he nailed it. I mean, that was almost like a supporting Oscar kind of performance. I thought he really did a great job as a football coach in that one, which is interesting because then he comes out with a TV series coach years later. He's playing a collegiate football coach. So that's funny.
So let me ask you a question though. Are we going to get past? Are we going to go past the Bond films without talking about what's the best opening songs were?
Go ahead. Floor's
Are we going to do? We're not going to do that, are we?
We talked about it.
Okay, that's why I
can't name one.
Wait,
I'm not going to name the one. I can name, maybe my Mount Rushmore, maybe. But
okay. Oh yeah, it's hard to name one. Yeah.
I can't do one.
Okay. You can.
You got it. Go ahead.
For me, it's Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die. It's the only Bond film. It's the only Bond theme song that they carried. Those sequences, you'd see the action sequence, and then you would hear that. They took that song all the way through the entire film. It wasn't something that was just like, okay, come up with a Bond song. And I even nodded to Carly Simon's "The Spy Who Loved Me." Look, it's a great song.
It is, yeah.
Right? And it's fine for the end of the film. But Live and Let Die is the only one you can play during the course of the film, and it feels Bond. I think it's the best. But I'm a sucker for that film too. It's not a great film, but I love the film.
Right.
See, I might be a little biased here because that's the Bond that got me into it. That Is Another Day by Madonna. I thought it was a good
song. Recency bias back then. You like Madonna. I was a Madonna fan back in the day because she's
yeah. I think for me, I got it, and she did a couple of them, but probably Shirley Bassey, Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That woman sang her butt off.
Did she did too.
She did Moonlight. I think a Goldfinger.
She did Goldfinger, I think.
Yeah. She did. I know she did at least a couple, but I mean, Moonraker. I mean, Diamonds Are Forever is just.
That was
I'll tell you. I'll give you this. I think the Diamonds Are Forever at the time was one of the best openings. As far as they always do this montage, some girl, bullets, all that kind of. But that opening is a pretty darn good. Even if you go back and watch it now, it's just like, this is classic Bond.
This is why I had to give Adele a nod, because Skyfall was great for a whole throwback song.
I agree with that, and I would probably, of all the modern stuff that's come out, I would probably give Adele maybe my second nod.
Right. And I have to add just an homage to the 80s. I was kind of a Duran fan back in the day. So A View to a Kill, even though the movie was horrible, it was bad. But that opening theme, when they came out jamming, I was like, I'm in the movie theater, like, okay, Duran, they're delivering this thing. That was a really great opening.
I forgot that Duran did that.
Yeah. But they were so hot then also. So it's like the hottest, arguably the hottest band going at the time. And they're gonna do that might have been the first where they were like Shirley Bass, like they were just picking just people who could just sing, But then it was like I think they started taking advantage. Okay, who's the it celebrity? I'm surprised Beyonce hasn't done one already, but she could easily do one if they wanted that kind of star power, especially the way they link the music and the soundtracks and everything now. But again, to capture that kind of heat, I think that set a precedent going forward that we got to get the top singers, the most known, so we can sell more albums and stuff like that. But I think Shirley Bassey, I think she's just an underrated. She might be one of the greatest singers of all time.
Yeah,
I mean, great singer. I mean, just her voice is just, unbelievable. I played some tracks for my wife. I was like, who is this? It's like, but no one outside of America, no one's like heard of her. Like nobody, she could have got with any of those singers in the 60s, Dionne Warwick or any of the Diana Ross, any of those singers back in the day. She's probably better than all of them, but she just didn't. I guess she was more popular in Europe or doing those. She had a niche. She had a niche. Yeah, definitely. But oh my gosh, what a beautiful voice though.
So the question I got for you guys now is, how would you identify these guys as a hero between each other? How would you tell the difference if you had to? Maybe I'm new to the franchise. I'm like asking, Kelly, a good example is Kelly. How can I tell who's who? I'm not familiar. How would you do it?
So Bond is all about the mission. He is about, he's going to get it done, and maybe the more modern ones are less this, but he's going to get it done, and he's going to manipulate whoever he has to manipulate to get it done, but he will get it done, and he's going to be remorseless. Ethan Hunt is all about the team, regardless of how much screen time they get. But he's always about the team. The last movie, all his motivations was to try to protect the team. And it's interesting. I think Cruise tries to replicate some of himself in the Ethan Hunt character in this regard. I think Cruise is a very loyal person when it comes to what works in his films and his actors, because he keeps bringing these people back. You know how it is. You get a new screenwriter, you're like, oh, let's scrap the characters we've already had because we want to be able to come up with something new. Cruise hasn't done that. He's like, look, these are the characters. They're going to be in the film. I'm not killing them off. These guys are part of the franchise. and I think he does a great job with that. Now, admittedly, that's part of the love of Mission Impossible 2. There was always that group of people who's going to pull this mission off, etc. But that's what it is. Both of them are going to get it done. I think Ethan Hunt comes across as more he's more intense and feels the danger. Bond doesn't feel the danger. He knows the danger. He knows it's danger, but it's almost like
he's numb to it.
I got this. He's just so suave.
Okay, let me just say this real quick then. What you just said is that one man doesn't have an Achilles heel and the other one does.
Well, I think that's absolutely true.
I don't know. I think it depends on the Bond. Like I think Craig might have more of a sense of what that danger is, more so than
I agree.
Like Brosnan and Sean Connery and even Roger Moore for sure.
Sure.
He'd be like, okay, tied up, the laser's coming or whatever. He's already got some wittism or something that he has to say before it's over. I think Craig, again, because those other Bonds, did any of those other Bonds get bruises on them? Like Craig was always getting busted up, busted eye, busted
the result of it, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, did anyone lay a hand on Sean Connery? There
was a couple of times where I saw his collar pulled off to the side.
Well, wait a minute. He had the scrap from when
black eye, bloody. I mean, just bruised up or bloody hands or something. It's like,
right, I mean, yeah, you're right though. But I'm just saying in general, when you look at the character arc, I mean, some of that is writing, right, as opposed to just the actor. Yeah. But I'm just saying, if I had to juxtapose, both guys have a certain amount of leeway. But when you talk about Ethan Hawke, Hunt, whatever the name is, who worries about his team, that's also a vulnerability because his adversaries know about that.
Yeah. Well, and actually, that's a plot point. Right. As you go back and rewatch these movies, it is a major plot point for the film, and it should be.
And look, plot point. If you really think about it.
I mean, Bond doesn't get married. I mean, on his Majesty's Secret Service, he got married. Bond's not hooked up with a girl, right? And they give you the reasons for that when they give you Casino Royale, and you kind of learn why he is the way he is. Mm-hmm. The flip side of it is that Ethan Hunt, he finds someone he wants to marry, and he's lying about what he does to protect her, and then he leaves her to protect her. Like, and it's not just like a plot point in the film. 2 films later, here he is looking at her as she's living her life, and he's just looking at her from afar. He loves this girl, but he's just not. She shows up, I don't know, 3 movies later, and she's in danger with her new guy. Mm-hmm. Like, he is vulnerable. He has that part to him.
I kind of like, again, the problem with Bond, again, continuity. I think it's just something that is just lacked through the series, because I think they could have taken the Roger Moore Bond kind of makes sense as a follow up to the I'm having a brain freeze here.
Sean Connery.
No, the George Lazenby one. Because again, why is he so cold, or why even he's colder now than he's ever been? And I thought they alluded to that in The Spy Who Loved Me, because remember when he meets Agent Romanoff in Egypt, in Cairo, and she starts to break down his history, and he's like, okay, married once or whatever, and he's like, okay, you made your point. It's like, so she says, oh, so you do have vulnerabilities. I said, yeah, to certain things, yes. So you could see that he had something. So it's almost like he puts this fence up to sort of protect himself, but he does hold the vulnerability, but it was never consistent from film to film. And again, it's hard to have. I mean, give credit. I mean, Tom Cruise has been this thing. You said 28 years plus. But again, when you change Bonds every 4 to 5 years, it makes it very difficult. And another thing, this is just a side note that I think, which could have helped the series a lot. Now they did it with. I know the guy who played Q, the actor who played Q for all those years until he retired, I think in one of the Pierce Brosnan films or whatever.
Yeah.
I think they could have did that a lot more, especially with a guy like Felix. Like when Jeffrey Wright played Felix, and he was like he skipped the film for whatever reason, but having like a consistent Felix, because like every other film there was a different Felix. So having him as like his moral compass, his kind of, you know, somebody he could confide in. If he would have had like a constant guy like Jeffrey Wright through like the entire run of the series, that you can look at him and say, okay, he's the guy who's going to keep him grounded. Similar, I think Q tried to do it, but he was, you know, it was kind of comedic with him after a while. It was like he was just like comic relief, especially when you went to the lab and everything was like not working and something just exploded or you know, when it wasn't supposed to. But you know, they didn't. Not only couldn't they have a consistent bond, I think not having a consistent Felix, I think, really hurt the series. You know, what do you guys think about that? I just think that, especially with the Jeffrey Wright performances, that really, I thought that really also helped to anchor the oh Jesus, my mind is going the last Bond. I think that helped Daniel Craig. I think that really helped to anchor, and you felt more comfortable with him over multiple titles, especially compared to the other Bonds.
I definitely understand that eventually they're gonna have to change the actor, but when Tom Cruise is playing the same one over, I like that about it. And I also feel Tom Cruise is more human than James Bond because he has weaknesses. James Bond only weakness is who's going to sleep next. I haven't really seen any weaknesses like that.
Well, I mean, the Daniel Craig arc did a pretty good job with that, and you know, whatever you want to say about the last film, I thought the last film was well done. I hated the ending, but I thought the movie was well done, and it kind of completed the arc that you had there for the character, someone who's completely cut off all of his feelings, then sacrifices his life. It doesn't make any sense because there's so many plot holes as to why he can't we just wait on this for another 6 months and maybe we'll come up with the solution. It seemed like he had plenty of time to get out of the place where he was. Like, I don't know. But from a character standpoint, you know, he starts off with what happens to him in Casino Royale, and the Eva Green character winds up getting killed, and he is a lot of, like, she's the one who says he should have his martini shaken, not stirred. She gives him that tuxedo for the first time. It's like she makes the man.
Yeah.
And then she's gone, and he puts up this wall, and that's where it just stays. But there's not a lot of womanizing in the later Bond movies at all.
I think the Pierce Brosnan series, I think they kind of touched that. When you get the new M, and she basically says, you know, you're basically a relic of the Cold War. Like, you know, like I have these new methods of doing things, and you're like, you know, you're the brute. Sometimes you need a gun, and, you know, we'll use you that way. But, you know, it took those guys a while to kind of get on the same page. But I thought they kind of addressed that. Okay, we're going in this new direction with I think Dench was her name.
Madam Dame Dench, Madam Dame Dench. What the hell is her first name? Dench, but Judi Dench.
Judi Dench, yeah.
She's great, and I loved about what they did there was, okay, so M can be a female, that's fine. She's the one who's in, like, that's the kind of character change you do make, right? But then as they go through the series and M dies, then you have the new M, and if you notice, when it's the new M in the new office, that office is reminiscent of the old
correct
Sean Connery.
Yes.
And to me it was like, oh, okay, so now we're acknowledging this is where he's at in his career. This is the M that we all knew through all this. That other M is the one that was precursor. Now this is the new M. And, you know, let's face it, if Daniel Craig didn't want to quit the series, they probably would have done another movie or two with him. He probably could have pulled it off. Mm-hmm. And it would have been nice if they got to that sooner. But I thought Judi Dench was great in the role. I think what they did with her, Skyfall is a great film.
Yeah.
Great.
I love Skyfall. It was good.
I mean, you can't do Bond better than Skyfall. From a visual standpoint, He got, I don't remember if he won the Oscar, but he got nominated for the Oscar for that, for cinematography. I mean, it was just a great film. You can't do that better. But, to Pete's point earlier, if you don't have these side characters who can be permanent, Paul, you said the same thing, like have the same permanent.
Yeah.
Then that other character comes in, this other actor comes in, it grounds it in the same continuity.
Right.
Otherwise, you lose it all.
Yeah.
So this new Bond, they're going to either have to start way, way early, or it's got to be, who knows? Maybe they want to do. I don't know why they would want to do this, but they want to do a Batman Beyond.
Can we add something though? I mean, go ahead, Mr. Ben.
I give credit to, like I said, M's replacement. I mean, Mr. Dench's replacement. I thought Fiennes did a great job as that classic M that we're used to seeing. I thought that was a nice successor. Yeah. But they even built it up in the movie that he was going to succeed her. He was a character in the film, and they didn't just replace him just with a new person. He was going to be that, that person, and he kind of became him, so to speak. So I thought that was kind of cool how they did that transition. They didn't just throw a new actor in your face.
So let me ask on this point. If we're talking about, we know we're going to have to come up with another 007.
Yes.
So let's keep it. I'll keep the conversation elevated. No pointing fingers. Mm-hmm. There's a certain amount of commercialism with Bond, right? We already understand how certain replacements have destroyed franchises. So it's going to be very important who owns and who makes the decisions on who replaces Bond. If it's a person trying to prove some kind of point, then the whole franchise might be in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, the rights to that is still owned by Barbara Broccoli. They're the ones they've produced every James Bond except for Never Say Never Again. They've produced and the original David Niven Casino Royale. Peter Sellers Casino Royale. They've produced every other film.
We don't talk about that
one. So now granted, her husband is deceased, but she's still. They're still carrying the torch, and yes, they obviously were trying to set up for a female black Bond with this last film because 007 was now a female and she was black, and that was going to be.
Well, they tried to correct it in the film too, though, right?
Well, it's because they got a lot. They didn't, I don't think they quite read they're reading the press clippings. And the press clippings is not necessarily the way the world feels united in regards to some things, right? So I don't think that the need to push the boundaries of social justice is nearly as much what we want in our entertainment. And I think there was a lot of people, and especially in minority areas. Community that were like, what are you doing? Like, if you want to make a great black female movie, just come up with a new character.
Yes.
Like,
you could take.
I got a good one for you.
Yeah.
Maybe
I don't want to see the Jeffersons recast as the Smiths. Like, I don't need that. I don't need I don't need some white guy going dynamite. I don't need that.
Really good, man. Because I don't know if any black people ask for that.
Okay, here's a good title for next James Bond movie: James Bond Jr.
James Bond Jr.
Kenny's laughing. I know why he's laughing. It was a cartoon named James Bond Jr. one time.
Yeah.
Filmation.
It was a Filmation. I think Filmation did it. It was terrible. Terrible sure animation. It was.
Filmation used to make everything back in the day. Back then. So. Okay, so we identified it pretty much. Ethan Hunt is more human, basically. So what is the key difference in storyline? That's one I want to know. But you guys, I know, what's your opinions on?
Again, they're all over the place. You know what I mean? You've had your periods, you had your megalomaniacal figures who tried to take over the world. Again, I think the Austin Powers movies kind of did a lot to kind of, dissuade you from a lot of that thought process. But yeah, they were so over the top, I thought they tried to do a pivot with the I guess the 87, 88 Bond, the
Timothy Dalton,
where it was more like drug cartels and just more grittier stuff. I don't know if the Mission Impossible series went to those lengths. Again, just off the top of my head, I don't remember the plot point of every movie. I know obviously there's these large syndicate operations that obviously they're looking to infiltrate or shut down. But I think some of the, the laser, death ray kind of concept, which they kind of tried to replicate in GoldenEye, right? I mean, so it was like we're back to space lasers and things of that nature. So
orgasmic bad girl.
Yeah. Xena on the top. Yes, right. So I can't remember the Bond character. I can't remember the Bond character, but I remember Xena on the top. So
arguably one of the best moments between two characters in a Bond film is, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. I mean, it's a great little moment in that film with that laser between his legs.
Right there is a classic moment, James Bond. Now we all hear around the world now.
Right.
Yeah. And then it almost became a ruse also because, you always had the hero movies where it's like, the villains can, shoot thousands of rounds at you, but all your shots, you hit the target kind of thing. So you had that going on. And you also had, after a while, like, it's almost like they made the bad guys incompetent. It's like, wait a minute, you have him. He's chained up. Just take a bullet and just end it. No, we can't do that. We have to have some elaborate thing where he's hanging out, and then he uses his watch or something like that to get out of the situation or whatever. Just and a lot of times it happens like two or three more than once in the film. Mm-hmm. It's like
I just love the fact that a villain in that moment, he's got him and he's just like, listen, I've spent this entire time catching you.
Yes.
I am now gonna leave. I'm not gonna watch how this ends. I'm just gonna go. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. I'm gonna be over here. And then that's the moment. That's the moment that he escapes. Well, from a plot standpoint, Bond, every film is different. And that's part of the problem, right? Every film is different. How do you have a new villain, a new threat, a new this, a new that, without it just retreading? Yeah. That's one of the strengths of Mission Impossible that you can have. They've been fighting this syndicate, and each film they get deeper and deeper into trying to figure out who is really the ultimate player in this syndicate. So while they do that kind of thing, it's still at the end of each movie, it's like, okay, so here's the bad guy. Oh, no. It's these. Wait a minute. There's more to it than that. And that's how they keep it going, because they're going further and further up the chain with each movie. They're getting closer and closer to the end gamut, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to do when you've got one film for Bond.
Indeed. Now again, the Daniel Craig series, they did that. I mean, the whole point of the series was revealing who Spectre was, right?
Yeah.
They had different names, different like sort of underlink groups, but you knew they were kind of building towards the larger criminal organization who was funding all of those other, all those, what's that? Ellipse, I think was one of them, and just these underlink sort of characters. So, like I said, if they started with the Daniel Craig series and kept going, if you want to just compare those, I think they match up relatively well to the Mission Impossible series. If you said, okay, we're gonna cut off as good as those movies were, and let's be honest again, in the 60s, people's sensibilities were maybe a little bit different. They weren't as cynical as we are today, with all the information that we have and our eye to detail and things of that nature. They just wanted to be entertained, and again, it was all so that you could just sort of just lose yourself in the film. I think perhaps audiences now might be a little bit more sophisticated, and that's why I think the Daniel Craig series, I think, is going to stand up if you're going to take a sliver in time. But the Roger Moore or even the Sean Connery series. I don't know, because again, you didn't have that continuity, there to be present. So I think again, take the Daniel Craig's. I'll that might be a fairer comparison to go ahead to go head to head with.
I think you're right about that. I mean, modern filmmaking sensibilities, what they could do, etc. And I once again rewatched the Mission Impossible. I rewatched the Daniel Craig stuff. I don't know, maybe about a year and a half ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. So I mean, they're good. They're good films. In fact, Quantum of Solace I saw in the theaters, and I didn't remember liking it all that much. But going back and rewatching it once again, the same kind of thing, in the context of the continuity, it works a lot better.
So Kelly, here's the thing. Except Daniel Craig, the last James Bond, they haven't continued the story. There always is a reboot every time almost. It's a new story and new everything always. It's very rare. Okay, this happened in the last movie. It makes sense now. But Mission Impossible does that in all their movies. And that's what I like about it. Like, he has his team. You know who his team is. You got X, Y, Z. You got the tech guy. You got the big, bulky guy. You got his mechanic. You got the chick. You got everybody. You have the, Hickory guy. Every time James Bond. Don't get me wrong. I love James Bond movies. I think they're great movies. Don't get it twisted. But the storyline doesn't continue.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Pete, I'm with you. I can't wait for the next Mission Impossible film. I've never felt that way before. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was really anticipating Dead Reckoning because I just watched all the movies. But after seeing Dead Reckoning, and listen, is it the greatest piece of cinema? No. But as a capstone to the rest of the films, I think they do a great job of just ratcheting it up and taking you to this spot. I thought it was terrific, and I think there's a chance that Ethan Hunt dies in the next film. Dead Reckoning makes a lot of sense to me. He's getting older. He's reignited Maverick. There's going to be a Maverick 3. Like, I just can't see him. Dead Reckoning 1 didn't do as well at the box office as they hoped it would. And so I could see them kind of wrapping this whole up, which just makes it more interesting and exciting from a anticipating the film kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, Dead Reckoning was the last movie I saw in theaters, and I don't go to theaters off because I don't have time. But I do enjoy going to theaters. Was it a good movie? Absolutely. Was it as hyped up as it was being? Unfortunately, no. But I think they did it on purpose, like you said. I think they did it on purpose, so the second one is going to even blow up even more. And people are like, whoa, what did we miss the last one we missed? I think they're going to make it up in DVD sales or streaming sales now, technically. But you get my point. And
they only have a year to get it done, though.
I'm sorry?
They only have a year to get that done. You know, Dune's a perfect example. Like, Dune came out in 21, right? Mm-hmm. It's in the middle of the tail end of the pandemic. Are people still going back to the theaters? It made money. It was a hit, but it wasn't nearly as big as what you thought it would be.
Right.
They've had 2.5 years for this film to be seen streaming, and now look at Dune 2. I mean, it's a genuine blockbuster, right? So, but my fear of Dead Reckoning is that they're putting them out 1 year apart from each other, and I don't think he's got a lot of time.
It came out 23.
What's that?
Technically 2 years, 23 came out.
What did?
The first part 1.
Right. This is 2024. It came out in the summer of 23. This Dead Reckoning Part 2 comes out the summer of 24. It's going to be 1 year apart.
25 it says online right now.
Oh, maybe they've moved it.
Yeah, I think maybe they moved it.
It's supposed to come out this summer.
CQ, my friend CQ, he knows more about the behind the scenes stuff, and he would tell us more about it. But that's where I will get to my next question, actually, and this is an interesting question. So where is it? Where is it? Different storylines, different franchise. How can you break it down if you had to?
Wait a minute. Repeat the question. I was just looking at
two different franchises here. Okay, we got Mission Impossible up here, and they get James Bond over here. How do you break down the franchises? How can you tell the difference? Again, from a no fan who let's say his name is Marcus, and he's like, it comes up to me, Pete. How can I tell the difference?
I like your sigh, Paul. I like your sigh.
Is again with the Bond again. Which Bond? I mean, you're gonna have to break down the Bond films into eras and into actors, and you may not like them all. You know what I'm saying?
And I think one of the things you can say is the James Bond movies. You don't have to see the previous one to watch this one. It's not going to,
except for the Craigs. The
but
Craigs.
even, I mean, it does help. It does help with the Craigs. But for the most part, the history of the franchise, the James Bond films have been one shots, whereas
Oh, jeez.
is the continuing story that's
I think we lost
going to take you.
Kelly, there?
Yeah, Kelly, you were breaking up a little bit.
Going to have an ending.
Hey, I'm going to refresh it really fast. See if that fixes the problem.
Yeah, I think you were breaking up a little bit, Kelly. If you're going to just repeat.
Still there?
Yeah,
we're good. Can you just repeat what you said? You were breaking up a little bit last time.
Kelly, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
No.
Can you hear us?
You might have to repeat what you said. Can you hear us? I don't think you can hear.
Yes, so bring it back.
So listen, I think it's
Go ahead.
I think the world is big enough to, if you're a discerning moviegoer, you can tell the difference between the franchises, even through the similarities.
Kelly, can you hear us now?
Yeah.
All right. You were breaking up before, but
you were breaking
Kelly
up
jump
last
back in.
time. If you want to go back and just repeat the last comments you were saying in regards to the.
James Bond is like a one shot, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the Mission Impossible series is a continuing story that's going to have an end.
Do you think the end is coming pretty soon for Mission Impossible?
What's that?
You think Mission Impossible is coming towards the end of the franchise finally?
Yeah. I think the next movie is probably the last movie.
Yeah,
All right.
I think it has to. Yeah.
Let's come back to that for a minute. Payne, go next, and Paul, you're last.
Yeah, like I said, I think the discerning moviegoers could tell the difference between the franchises, particularly for what was already been said. Like for each Bond, there's a plot, and then there's some kind of resolution before it's over. And maybe there was some crossover with the Daniel Craig ones. But Mission Impossible is like, again, it's like you know that there's always going to be another mission for this team, right? And I guess this one is a two-parter. And I just think it's just different. I mean, this whole kind of notion between the men who are in charge, the man who's in charge from a Bond, it's different. One's an international spy. The other one is kind of an international spy too. But it's just different. I just think that the nature of the men is different.
Right.
The kind of things that drive them is different. They both have missions to be on, but one doesn't have the same kind of reverence for the Lord over any kind of mission. He's like, under all circumstances, I got to get this thing done. I got to get the bad guy, even if I have to put a whole bunch of deleted bodies in my wake to get to him. And the other one is a little bit more conscientious in the way he goes about it, and that's Hunt. Even though he has to do some terrible things to get what he has to, he always has consideration. He's considerate. I don't think Bond is a considerate man. Not for the most part.
And one other thing, just you got the European point of view, which I mean it's made in Hollywood, but you've got kind of this is about British intelligence, and Mission Impossible is very decidedly American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
Go ahead, Paul. Finish. I'm sorry.
I would say Bond is more a brand. In that, regardless of everything we've said about the different actors and characters and directions that they go with the films, you see a Bond film for the brand. I think.
Okay.
You kind of know what you're getting. You want the gadgets. You want what Q's going to equip him with. You want the you know, the interaction with them. You want the girls. You want. So it's like it's a it's a formula that just keeps on giving. You know what I mean? Whereas, but again, I think the Mission Impossible series, as has been said, again, it's much more of a there's the storyline, there's an arc, there's a common thread that's going through them. It's more seamless as it goes forward, and I think that but I think the character of Bond, I think is something that also I think certainly in the '60s and certainly growing up, Bond was like the guy everybody wanted to be. Like, I don't know if I don't know if you guys want to be Ethan Hawke. I just don't. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody wants to be Bond. You want to be cool. Bond is cool. He dresses to the nines. His every suit is perfectly tailored. He can get any girl that he wants. He can, delete as many bad guys as he wants. He's just cool. Everything about Bond is cool. And he was like especially back in the 60s. I mean, everyone smoked cigarettes and the vodka martini and just it's almost like an homage to that,
era. Yeah.
That era but I think it still resonates. And look, Arpin, we've been in these streets for a while now. So there's a lot of guys would still like to have some of that James Bond swag. Ethan Hawke, Ethan's, not as much. I think so. Bond is like an ideal. Like if you say that the ideal man, like think about movie characters in general. Who is the ideal man? Who represents that? You might see Tony Stark. Who kind of in some ways he's kind of like like a Bond character. Just take the superhero, take Batman out of it, take Bruce Wayne out of it, but. Sort of like the guy that if you could be somebody for it, even the name. Like imagine if your last name was Bond for real. In fact, there was a I don't know if you guys remember, there was a commercial. There was like a federal commercial, and you had people whose actual names are James Bond, and everybody was saying my name is Bond. Even the name, like imagine going on a job interview, and it'd be like, "Hello, my name is Bond, James," and like for real, his name might be the coolest name in history. You know what I'm saying? So it's so again, the brand is bigger. The ideal represents something that I think certainly in men and quite frankly in women, because women go for Bond. Even in his more brutish ways, there's still something about him that the women can't resist.
Yeah, it's that ultimate alpha male. And talk about he always got the girl, and Ethan Hunt has never gotten to keep the girl.
Yeah. So to kind of answer the question succinctly, it's like James Bond is the man that most men want to be, whereas Ethan is more like the man that we somewhat we kind of feel sorry for to an extent that he's had to give up so much. He's a hero. Yes, all of that stuff, but I mean, do you want to be in his shoes? Or
the hero without the cars. The hero
don't forget the cars that he's got. He's got every movie. He's got the best car, the most technically advanced car. It's jacked to the nines. It's souped up. Men love women, and they love cars. And as long as you're delivering that, you're gonna land the plane most of the time.
Whoever they put in there,
funny you said that.
Gotta tread lightly, man. I'm serious.
Bond is like he is the guy that the id. Like we want to be Bond.
Good word.
The id, right?
Yes, good word.
And Ethan Hunt, like Bond's the guy we all want to be, and Ethan Hunt is the guy we aspire to be. In my opinion, you try to do the right thing and you just try to get through it. Well, Bond is, I love the Mission Impossible series, but if I could be one or the other, it's Bond. I'm gonna be Bond.
Here's the thing. It just came to my memory, and this is one scene that always stuck in my memory. Bond always had a car. The coolest guys, somehow he always could order his phone or something. I remember the one scene, he's playing with a car. He's ready, before touchscreens were out. And Q goes, try to bring this back in one piece. And he is playing around like, give me that. He's not a toy, I'm like, yeah, he's going to fuck it up, most likely.
Yeah.
Before halfway through the movie, the car was trashed. I'm like,
Well, you know,
So that-
Bond was like a tool. Everything was a tool. It was just a tool. It was a big,
Yeah.
that's it.
Absolutely. You knew, but again, they tried to the earlier point, they tried to go away from that. When the new Q, the young guy with the glasses in the Craig series, he's like, all I get is a gun and a radio. He's like, what do you want, an exploding pin?
Yeah, they make fun of it. Yeah.
So they kind of spoofed their own thing. But he did get the car. He got the classic car back. So
I do have a question for you guys, though.
yeah,
Go for it.
Speaking of, and that is best, worst Bond girl.
Oh God. Oh shit.
I say worst only because every time I think Bond girl, worst Tanya Roberts. View to a Kill, Tanya Roberts.
That'll work. That'll work. Now again, you're talking about the girl because there's like 2 or 3 girls.
Yeah.
Now Mayday. Look, Mayday's character. I wasn't offended by her. I thought that I thought it definitely was a new wrinkle in the series. That here you got. I mean, Grace Jones. She's imposing anyway. She's like 6'1". So I mean, she's and to be as super strong as she was, I think she might have been part of that genetic program or something that they did or something. But she was just, that was definitely going in a different direction. But I didn't mind the character of Mayday. I mean, that might have been one of the things that I did like about that movie was her character. But I would probably agree about Tanya Roberts. But I think I'd have to go to the best. I'd have to go to Barbara Bach. Again, Spy Who Loved Me. I mean, beautiful. I mean, she was almost. Because some of the Bond girls, I'm like, I can kind of take a leave. It's like, you could have cast someone better. I also love Jill St. John from Diamonds Are Forever. I thought she was good in that role.
Well, that's classic. That's classic.
Yeah. But I would say those 2 would probably be my favorites, just off the top. And I wasn't crazy about the one you had mentioned. I guess the second Craig film.
Eva Green.
No, the second.
Yeah. And Quantum of Solace.
Quantum Solace. I wasn't crazy about her. Plus, they put plus she's like, she's mostly white, but they put this massive tan job on or something like that to make her darker than what she than what she was. I think she's Russian by background or something like that. But yeah, I'll probably put those 2 up there, Bach and Jill St. John as my top.
Ursula Andrews. I mean,
yep.
I mean, she was I think a great ingenue. I think Barbara Bach is a better example of what you just imagine the Bond girl's going to be, right?
Yeah. And again, give credit obviously to Kathy Rigg. I mean, Diana Rigg. I mean, she, that was sad, but that she made out pretty good there as well.
Come on, man. You guys, listen, I understand, like, you're talking beauty, but the very, very first one that just set it all off was Pussy Galore. Come on.
Well, certainly the funniest name, man. That's no doubt. No doubt.
Come on, man. You walk around, and every time he had to call her pussy, I'd say.
Here's my lineup. Number 1, Halle Berry.
It was. I think that was just an homage to contemporary people.
Yeah.
Second place.
I mean, she's fine, but they do it. Yeah.
But again, the movie is bad. That was the one with was that the one with the invisible car and all that? I mean, that was
Tomorrow.
I mean,
Tomorrow Never Dies or whatever.
The surfing on the high,
on the ice and the whole bit.
Yeah, it was done by this, so I can't really like anybody.
That was more like what's the thing? The Fast
and the Furious. Yeah,
that was a Fast and the Furious right there.
We're not going to talk about that show yet. That is a future show. The second place is Michelle Yeoh, who played in Tomorrow Never Dies, and the last, I thought the worst one in GoldenEye was Frankie Jamies. I couldn't stand her as an actor in that movie.
Oh, Frankie Lampkin or whatever her name is.
Yeah,
Frank James. Yeah, Janskin or whatever her name is.
Yeah, that was Zena.
She's a good actor. Don't get me wrong.
It was a. I mean, her versus Mayday in a fight. I'd pay to see that. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you guys a question.
That'd be a very interesting fight to see those two ladies going at it.
Let me ask you guys a question. Would you pay money to go see a crossover, or maybe somehow those two, Ethan Hunt and James Bond, meet somehow.
Yeah, I'd pay for it. I
Yeah.
mean, would it work? Probably not.
How do you know that?
But,
Maybe they found a way.
I don't know. But yeah,
I would
Maybe
just
they're on
rather
the
you
same
invest
mission.
in a stronger Felix, because again, if the Mission Impossible is to be more CIA, more on the U.S. side or whatever, just have a very strong Felix, which is another thing I didn't like about. Again, this might be the American side of me. In some of those Bond films, they made like the Felix look kind of like a buffoon.
Yes.
Like Bond. Again, that's why I said when Jeffrey Wright took the role of Felix, he was a strong, savvy, witty, newest stuff or whatever. He was wise to the game. Some of these other Felixes, like Bond would just send him on a goose chase somewhere just to get away from him. I said, like,
I mean,
and that might have been a pro-British thing. It was like, our British Secret Service is much more superior to your American CIA. CIA, y'all just clowns. I don't know what y'all doing.
yeah, I mean, in the Timothy Dalton films, if you recall, Felix, is he killed or is his legs chopped off?
No, I think he's.
I thought he was killed. In
the Living
Daylights.
He got married.
Yeah.
And then they kidnapped him and his wife or something. So I think he might have been paralyzed and his wife might have been killed. Something like that. Yeah. But it was pretty bad. But again, there's never been like a powerful Felix until Jeffrey Wright. That's something they should have had from the outset.
I didn't really. I agree with you on that. I mean, it's a wasted character.
Yeah.
But product of the time. I think your point is pretty well taken that they were just making fun of.
To answer you, Grumman, listen, we all know that to make those things come off, the writers have to be right. But there could be an intersection where James Bond had to, from the British standpoint, MI6 had to interface with a group like Mission Impossible Force but it would have to be like a worldwide kind of adversary. Again,
it would have to be back to the old days where you had to get the megalomaniac trying to, destroy everything.
Now I don't see how they could do that in a one-parter. That's my thing. I don't see how they could do that in a one-parter. But
hang on. If you remember Die Another Day, they were working with the CIA, and everything's going to hell. The freaking CIA, half the CIA building got blown up, and he goes, "I need a fucking second in the end." And we go, and it was Halle Berry was part of the CIA, and he was British intelligence. So it is a way.
But again, the movie is bad. I mean, that's the thing. You can't.
Point of view.
Yeah.
So
no, but it'd be good though from the standpoint that the clash of styles would kind of bring the kind of things we're talking about to life.
Mm-hmm.
It would be interesting from the. Would you like to be like in the negotiations of them? Okay, we're going to write this movie. How much screen time is Ethan Hunt going to get versus James Bond? It's going to be like the negotiations for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like when Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse had to be on screen the exact same amount of time. Donald Duck and Daffy Duck had to be on screen the exact same amount of time. Like that's the kind of negotiations it would be. That would be crazy.
The real life negotiation with the actor, number one, but I can just imagine the interface in the movie itself.
Right,
depending on your Bond. Now, again, I think Craig might be a bit more cooperative, but a Sean Connery or Roger Moore, I just can't see those guys being like, "Oh, I got to work with this guy."
It would be funny though when you really think about the characters. If the two of them were working together, talk about like your buddy cop, like your buddy cop movie, the good cop, bad cop, and just think of Ethan Hunt's reactions to Bond's just coldness,
which is again going back to your early question, Peter, about the differences. Again, I mean, certainly Bond is certainly much more the lone wolf,
right?
Not to say that he doesn't, obviously just be this M and Q and those people, but he's kind of like he's a gun, he's a single shot gun, pretty much. Where Ethan relies on his team continually in order to get to get things done. He really relies on those guys.
Well, how many movies have we seen a lone wolf up against a team player? and then the plot has to wrap around how they get together in a way to get something done.
Is that really a serious question, Chef? Because many movies not doing that nowadays.
Well, you mean a team player and a lone wolves?
Yeah.
I hear you. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The formula is there, but again, I think every movie we see depends on the people backstage in terms of how they write it. And that's where things have been falling short. I mean, some movies have great themes, but they have terrible character development, terrible plot lines and storylines when they try to force shit to give us a message that we don't want.
They try to shove it down your throat.
That's what's wrong with Hollywood today.
Mm.
And Kelly, you knows better. Kelly knows better than anybody. Am I right? They try to shove it down your throat too much because you were in the movie business at one time.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole problem that we have. I mean, look, we go to the entertain. Like, there's a place for message movies, right? It's called the Hallmark Channel. No, I'm just kidding. There's a place for message movies, and absolutely. But when you start messing with beloved characters and franchises, that's to Paul's point earlier. I love the thought process that Bond is a brand, right? Mm-hmm. And Mission Impossible is to an extent, but you know what you're getting when you go to Bond. You're not going to go there and be shocked if he womanizes. Exactly. Like, that's not what's going to happen. And for us to constantly, I'm so tired of us managing to the lowest common denominator. The lowest common denominator for me is the person who can be the most outraged, the most upset. Look, it's a simple thing. Don't go. Yeah. Don't watch. And then the marketplace takes care of it. If we as a society get to the point where the message is more important than being entertained, the dollars will follow. But what you see over and over again is that's not the case. And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with the loss of Marvel and Star Wars. It just keeps happening over and over. Yeah, so it's the shame. Like, give us. As I was asking that question earlier, because I really don't know what the answer is. Like, how do you do a Bond movie reboot in this day and age? Man, you want to make some money? Give us a classic Bond.
That's right.
Make it a period piece if you have to. If you have to make it a period piece, give us a period piece Bond.
Yeah. No, listen. We can fight the tide. Give us a modern period Bond with written the way it should be written. Hell with it, man. Make people mad, and then say hell with you. That's what I want them to do. Put their middle finger up and say, "Don't come to my movie because I don't have your social justice bullshit in there." Sit it out.
The problem is all that social justice is coming from Hollywood. It's coming from
that's what I'm saying. So that's why they're doing it. But anyway,
that's where the money is.
Every so often, I would like a guy to stand up, but they're making some movies like that. If you saw Reacher on Prime, they didn't have that. It was a good series. They didn't have to resort to. They had a big ass white boy in the lead, and he didn't have to go through any social tropes. He was a loner. He had two badass chicks underneath him, right? And they didn't have to embarrass. They didn't have to. In order for them to be successful, they didn't have to denigrate men to do it. And it was just a good series.
Yeah, I agree.
So it was just good.
Let me ask you guys a question.
The friendship between the black girl, I forgot her name, and Reacher was even deeper than the chick he was sleeping with. Their friendship was even deeper if you look at that. So I'm just saying that was just nice. I mean, I said this is refreshing.
Yeah,
it's just refreshing stuff.
What was your Grooming? What was your question?
So let me ask you. Oh, you guys' question. I was going to ask Kelly. Would you prefer to see one back in the '60s, kind of go up the timeline, or would you do a hard reboot of 2024, kind of James Bond, drop him today?
I want to reboot from today on. Just make it modern, but use the old classic James Bond, swashbuckling dude the way he should be. And be damn, and don't care about how the warriors think about it. The social warriors think about it.
Kelly, what do you think?
I would love to see classic characters represented classically. I would love to see that. It's not going to happen anymore. Maybe on a streaming. Like, I love the Reacher series. I think it's really well done. But you're not going to get that in a Hollywood movie. There's too many. There used to be too many people who had their opinions, but now you have too many dollars that then also control all of the opinions now. So you're never going to have it. The only way you could possibly get it, and this is why I said put it in the past, is that's the only way Hollywood would allow it. And then you'd have to watch. There'd be a title card beforehand that says something like, the representations of men and masculinity in this film are cultural representation of the times and not a reflection of the actors, the producers, the of anybody today. It's not an actual representation.
Yeah, but they don't have. I mean,
I know they don't have to, but they would.
I'm just saying the Napoleon movie was out not too long ago, and that didn't put any representation of men from the 1700s or.
Did you know that that's what they do? As soon as the guy beds 3 women, that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
There'd have to be a comeuppance. James Bond would have to learn a lesson at the end.
And they certainly didn't do that in Game of Thrones. I mean, Game of Thrones, they did.
That's what I'm saying.
They had brothels. They were doing stuff every week on that show.
Even Vikings.
Yeah, but you know what?
Never the good guy, though. Never the good guy.
In the new Game of Thrones, they made it a point to show how deadly having a baby is. That's all they did, and that the man was making decisions for the woman's womb.
Well, that's honestly say I'm too much of a sensible man these days. I mean, anytime you have those medieval or those old ancient things or whatever, and they have that much sex in it, I'm like, are these people even washing up? I mean, I'm just saying, no one's shaving back then. No one. I mean, it's just grimy, man. That's the first thing I think. So again, I might be too modern for Game of Thrones because I mean that's gonna be like, man, she didn't even date. It was a Jon Snow. He went down on who was the redheaded girl. I was like,
it was in the water, man. Like, it was some water there, so maybe
and then
got a little
Jeez, Paul, what the hell do you think of this shit?
I'm just saying.
But it's a good point. But when you see there's those inevitable nude moments,
right?
They're not groomed like the medieval times.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they all say it's like, well, shaving came right. Yeah. Go.
Anyway, back to the show. So we have enough time for one more question, maybe 2 tops. Tech.
I had a question too, but
go ahead. Go. You go first.
Okay, so, and this might be an American thing. I'm just thinking about in terms of I talked about branding earlier, and I want to tie that also to fandom. I think James Bond as a cultural icon to British people is up there. I remember when Britain had the Olympics, was that 2012? I think they had in London, the games in London. And part of their opening ceremony, they did something like an homage to Bond, where somebody kind of came in on a...
Yeah, I said that earlier in the show. It was him and the Queen jumping out of parachuting in a commercial.
That was it. Yeah, it was in the
She wasn't really
games.
Jumping, but
right.
That was the point of it. And that actually would be pretty cool if she actually did jump out of her plane.
Yeah. But I know obviously James Bond is a global phenomenon. I'm in the IT field, so again, anytime I saw a few films with friends from India, because obviously India was formerly British, so Indians love Bond, so that's like 2 billion people right there. Love, So, but I don't know is there an American franchise that has that kind of affinity? Like this is ours. Like this is this is something where the fandom is as rich. Even like I said, as good as we may say the Mission Impossible series is, and as successful, it's made over. I look up, the franchise made like over $4.5 billion in its run, so it's been successful. But I just don't get the sense of the fandom, the affection, the affinity for it, the way the James Bond series did, even the good or bad. Again, that's one thing about the fans. Also, you might have had a bad James Bond movie. It didn't stop you from going back. Well, they never had. I don't know if they ever had like back-to-back bad James Bond. Even the Timothy Dalton series, which again I didn't love, but you always came back to a Bond film. No one got so fed up with it, saying I can't watch this anymore. So again, I don't know if there's an American property or franchise that has, maybe the Avengers or franchise, something like that. But the fandom of Bond, especially to the British people, I think it's something that's a source of pride I don't think we have here. Certainly not in today's.
So I just typed it in. Well, its top results are 28 Days Later, Bad Boys, Lethal Weapon, Ocean Avenue, The Hangover, Home Alone, Rush Hour, and Incredible Hulk. So Avengers, in other words, in the last one. So those are the
Right.
top ones for America.
But what did you type in? What's the parameters of that?
Top Hollywood movies franchises.
28
Yeah.
days. 20 days later. What do you mean? 28 days later?
Yeah, it's a movie. It means before
No,
it's
but
not
is
Japan.
that an American movie? I thought that was British.
It was
Zombie
Danny Boyle did it, and he is British.
Yeah.
That and it was 28 days later, and then it was 28 weeks later. There was 2 movies.
Yeah, that's a zombie movie. I'm mistaken, right?
Good movies, by the way. Good
Yeah.
movies.
I thought that was.
I think your question's really good, Paul. Like,
Yeah.
is there something that is so culturally American? Because that's what it is.
It used to be. I mean, like Dirty Harry, I think, and not to say that all those movies are good, but like in the 70s,
Yeah.
Dirty Harry was clearly like an American big thing, big guy, big gun, went in and shot everybody up. I mean, you had some, and maybe early days, maybe John Wayne back in the day.
Some of the
I was
westerns.
I was too young for John Wayne films and whatnot. So, but I don't know if there's like a something that is so purely like quote unquote American. Maybe it's just because again, Great Britain is multicultural. I mean, you look there. I mean, they're
America though. Nobody's like us.
right. But I'm just saying.
I'll tell you this, Paul.
Mr. Ben, I'm cutting you. I'm sorry. I think it might not be a franchise, but I think Clint Eastwood would be like an American icon.
Yeah.
Well, certainly.
Yes.
And
So
you go back
living
to the
overseas,
westerns, yeah.
We talked about a couple of series. Star Wars will be one of them. Star Trek's another one.
Okay.
The other ones.
Yeah.
It's like those are the two ones that can come up in my head right now. Those are like the big boom, Superman, Batman. Those are the franchises I used to talk about all the time with my friends back in Greece.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess what you're saying, Paul, and I think it's a really interesting question because look, superheroes, they're popular all over the world. MCU is popular all over the world, right? Bond is popular all over the world, but Bond is uniquely British in its sensibilities and its characterizations, right?
It's also pride, like
right.
To a British person, James Bond is more than just. I talked about brand for them is more than brand. It is like I said, it's an ideal. It's the best of Britain. Their Secret Service and how that's treated. Whereas, like I said, and how many movies, period, where the CIA. I remember when the A-Team came out. Not the series, but the movie that came out. Those guys again, the CIA idiots, right?
Right.
All these Hollywood movies make fun of CIA intelligence or FBI or something like that. It's never treated like like something to be proud of. But it's like the British with the Bond series, they made sure there was going to be certain things we were not going to look foolish in how we represent ourselves as British people. So I don't know if I've seen that with them, not in maybe in the last maybe 40 years. I haven't seen that because even you mentioned Star Wars and Star Trek; those are intergalactic.
Yeah,
everybody can kind of get behind.
I was going to hit on Star Trek because Star Trek, the antithesis of being owned by American in Star Trek.
Yeah,
it's like no boundaries, no nothing.
No nations, essentially, right? I mean, so
that wasn't.
So that's is there something even today that galvan all Americans, black, white, Asian, whatever, a series, an idea, a concept that we can all get behind and be like, yes, this is America. This is America, and we can just be.
Well, that's the problem, Paul. We're not allowed to say we love America anymore. America's the bad guys. I mean, that's the thing.
We may need something. Maybe that's what America needs. Maybe we need an ideal. We need somebody, a character, or something that we can all kind of like agree on. Now it might have been maybe the guy recently again. Remember that series 24? Remember that series 24?
Yes.
Great.
Guy, Jack Bauer. Now that. I don't care who you were.
Uniquely American show.
Yes,
that is.
I don't care who you were. So maybe that needs to. Maybe did they ever try to convert 24 into a movie?
They did a movie. It was like it was a mini series. Like it was 4 hours.
Okay, but maybe they need to do a reboot of that, but on the big screen, something that that anybody can go to. But that's what Bond has. But like you said, Bond is uniquely British. It is a source of pride, and it resonates with people globally. But I think we need something like that. I just don't know what that is. But that might be the last reference from the 90s that we could probably point to, that everybody at any given time, you were watching 24. It was so pop. I mean, it was The Office talk the next day or whatever. And it was just, that might have been it. I can't think of anything else.
The other thing about Bond is it's generational too, right? So, I grew up. Yes. You weren't on yet, Paul, but I was talking about. He was asking my initial memories of Bond, and I grew up sitting on the floor when a Bond movie came on. You couldn't rewind it. You just stopped what you were doing and you watched it. I watched it with my parents.
Listen, ABC Sunday night movie,
right?
Come on in the 80s.
Yeah,
I remember the theme credits from that when that came on.
Yeah,
that was my intro into Bond. So Sunday night, I had to ask my mom because again, the movie would go to 10 or whatever, and it's a school night the next day or whatever. It's a Bond film. It's like, Mom, can I stay up to watch this film to the end? Because it came on at 8 and ended at 11. So it was like, but yes, that was again must see a TV on Sunday nights. You didn't have Sunday night football. You didn't have all these other sporting events taking up time. That was it on Sunday night, ABC Sunday night movie. That was the height of it.
And who's driving the audience numbers for Bond? I find it hard to believe. I think about I have 3 grown children, and they're all guys, and I think about them, and they like the Bond movies, but they're not. There's no significance to them. The Marvel films, yes. A lot of the things that I grew up with, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, love them, but are they rushing off to see the next Bond movie? Probably not. They're not going to probably see. They might see Mission Impossible because I'll make them.
Right. Right. But then again, I mean, but again, I think all of us would agree that which we started with as kids, and we were all kids when that stuff came out initially, we kind of stick with. We may add to the library, but the ones that made an impact on us, like I said, sitting in front of that 25-inch black and white TV set, it still resonates. It didn't go anywhere. So again, what your kids are probably into when they were young, they'll probably still be into going forward. But yeah, to attract a new fan base, and again, if you want to talk about making money, I don't know if it's about attracting new fan bases. Sometimes it's about just keeping the ones you have. Like I said, Bond always delivers. Nobody, you gotta India again. They still go bananas over Bond. I mean, so you can still make money with that or whatever. But I think part of it is when you try to go for sort of a new audience, sometimes I think that's where a lot of the problems that we were talking about earlier. Okay, don't lose your existing customer base for the sake of trying to gain like another 10%. I think business in general needs to avoid trying to do that. You got a solid business, you got solid numbers, but when you try to go after that, place on the corner and you forget the business at home, then I think that's when you run into problems. So
can anybody say Bud Light?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, there's billions and billions of dollars that's still available. So we got some Gen Xers that are still going to be around for a while. There's some baby boomers still are paying. You got to give me another 20 years, man. You're not going anywhere anytime soon. So there's still plenty of younger boomers and older Gen Xers and even some younger Gen Xers that are still appreciate the content that's out there, and I would spend
money.
To your point, yeah, and to your point, Arpane, yeah, just satisfy them, and you'll make money hand over hand over fist. So even that series, what was that series that was on Mad Men a few years ago?
Yeah,
very popular series. It had all the stuff that you would talk about, Arpane.
Yeah.
Totally politically incorrect.
Yeah.
Had to be a period piece.
But it made
people loved it. Yeah.
Yes. So look, you got to decide what you want.
So Paul, let me ask you a quick question. Again, I apologize. I'm being stupid on this one. Isn't India still under the crown or no?
No, 1947. as they became independent.
Okay.
But they're still influenced. You know, I mean, it's even though the relationship, the governing relationship isn't there anymore. I mean, the British, it's still, you know, a lot
Huge
of,
part
you
of
know,
their culture.
yeah, and how they see themselves
Yeah.
oftentimes is through Great Britain. You know, so again, when like I said, anytime a Bond movie came out, I knew I can call some Indian friends. What we would go in droves. You go to the theaters. I'm in New Jersey, so again, packed out. You know, it's like, well, I'm in the Bollywood movie or what. But again, they go bananas for James Bond because, you know, tied to Britain.
So, before I want to respect you guys' time, obviously, I can finish the last question.
Nice
or
show.
do
This is
final
good.
thoughts?
This is fun.
Final thoughts, guys?
Go ahead. What'd you say?
All right. Paul, you want to go first? Kelly second, and Arpane
Oh,
last.
yeah, final thoughts?
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, let me go first because these guys are much more profound than I am. All right, so let me throw this out at you. You know what? If there's a series that you want to see Three Body Problem on Netflix.
Three Body Problem. Okay.
Yes,
It's on my list.
it's very, very good, and you know, a couple of early episodes get kind of hokey, but you got to stay through them to the reveal in the third episode, and then you won't be able to pull away. It's really good. It's from the makers of the game, the two showrunners from the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
They do a great job, and they come up with I've never seen a series. Maybe I have, but I couldn't remember a series where they have 5 real brilliant scientists who are actually likable characters, and they have a friendship together, and they get pulled into this deal. You know what I'm saying? So it's really, I think it's really good. I'm going through it twice already. So let me end with that. So three body problem. Maybe that be something you might want to talk about in one of your shows, Grooming in the future.
I literally, as you're saying it, I just added it on my thing so I can watch it. I can't talk about something if I didn't have to watch it, right?
You got it. All right. So let me land it there. If it's on your list, it won't waste your time, and they all drop, so you don't have to wait week by week. You know, it's binge worthy.
Yeah, that's one thing about it. Netflix are really good. Kelly, Paul, who wants to go?
Thanks for letting me up.
Here.
Hey, good seeing you. Good seeing you, brother. Yeah, I mean, James Bond, as I said, 5, 6 years old, however young I was. So I probably started with the Roger Moore series. I was born in '69, so again, the Roger Moore was probably the one that made the impact on me. I had to go back and watch, the Sean Connery ones, but again, ABC they would just cycle them out. So it could be Roger Moore one Sunday and Sean Connery the next month or whatever. But it was just ABC. I think they own the franchise, so to speak, in terms of show. I never saw them on NBC or CBS. They never had James Bond or anything other than ABC. So so when those movies were out, again, very impactful. Certainly as part of my experience. Again, parallel, watching Mission Impossible. Afternoons, they would come on right after Kung Fu Theater. So Saturdays was Kung Fu Theater 3, Mission Impossible at 5. That's just how it ran going into Saturday night. So again, I had a lot of affinity for it. Like I said, I had to readjust in order to appreciate the Mission Impossible movies because, again, the series. I didn't like the remake when they came back in like '87 or whatever. They kind of they got the band back together, but it was a little old, I think, at that point. But the original series with the suspense, I still think there's a market for that, and I would love to see movies focus more on the espionage and the suspense more so than just blowing up everything the way they did before. But great series and franchises. And but I do, to my last point, I do wish that we can come up with an American brand, something like along the lines of 24, something like that, that can really get us being proudly American, and we can say this is our Bond, so to speak. But we haven't had that kind of character since Jack Bauer, and I wish they'd go back to that. So,
Kelly,
yeah. So. Bond, right? Cultural, part of my history growing up. But Bond is a mixed bag. You're always going to get a good movie, a bad movie, a good movie. You're going to get good performances, horrible performances, good writing, terrible writing. Mission Impossible is incredibly consistent. And it wasn't until I rewatched these movies all in a row over the course of a week or two that I really went from I like the Mission Impossible series to becoming a huge fan of the series and an advocate for the series. I think it's terrific. I challenge everybody to go back and rewatch them and see what your experience is. You won't see a dip in quality. And that's the amazing part to me is that they just get better and better. And even if you might like one a little bit more than the other, they're so consistent and wildly entertaining. They do have a lot of the espionage with the action as opposed to just the action. So I think that, upon a rewatch, you might find it to be pretty entertaining. But at the end of the day, it's all personal preference, right? Yeah, Baby Boomer down there, he loves his man being a man, right? And there's nothing wrong with it because I do too. Sure, but I like what I'm seeing with the Mission Impossible series and where it's gone, and I like the fact that it's going to be a complete story when it's done, and it's going to be something that's going to really stand up over time. Some of those James Bond movies don't. Daniel Craig series probably will.
Yeah.
But if you like good filmmaking, you can't go wrong with either one, especially the more modern ones.
Yep.
Yeah. Before we go, I got a couple of options and my take. Doesn't matter which movie you like. You like a movie, watch it. Who the hell are we gonna tell you? Well, we just like it talking about this shit because we have no fucking lives. But I want to do a show with. Wait! You're gonna like this, Kelly. Kenny, wait! I got one for you. James Bond versus Ethan Hunt versus Bourne.
Jason Bourne.
No.
You know what? Here's the problem with just a real small caveat. I don't think I could add anything more to that conversation than what we've already spoken about. But I will say this about Bourne. Paul Greengrass, who directed the Bourne series, famously destroyed action films for me because he just took the MTV style of edit and put it into action films, and you lose all sense of placement in the action. Now, you want to throw John Wick in there? We can have a conversation about John Wick, man. Now, you want a man? You want a guy? John Wick is the guy.
Yes, but
I don't think he's a guy. I think he's a machine. I think he's a Terminator. But that's
hang on. Lane Novo, if you're on, you start yelling on your keyboard. Paul was supposed to watch all the movies before we talked about this. Did you watch them?
No, I did. I watched them all. And then, like I said, I just think again, it's the height of what I was talking about. You can have thousands of rounds of ammo shot at you. No one lands one. Every shot that you, even with a pin, you're killing guys. Right?
Anyway,
it's just after a while, it's like, okay, do I need 4 movies of this? I mean, it's
the John Wick thing. Listen, it's not based in reality, right? It is an anime comic. It's a cartoon brought to life.
What they call it? It's called gun fu.
Yeah, gun fu.
Not gung fu. Gun fu.
What I really appreciate about that series is the inventiveness of the action. Is just, they do for fight sequences what Fast for car physics. It just doesn't make any sense in a lot, but it's so wildly entertaining and inventive in that regard.
Okay, right now we're sitting new record for us for the channel. 8 likes for tonight. That is a record for us. So I want to thank my guys here. I couldn't have done it without you guys. You guys literally helped me more than anybody can say. The credit is not me. It's you guys. I don't put anything together. Without you guys, I don't have a show. So thank you guys. Pretty much.
Well, we appreciate your time, Pete. We appreciate you having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, schedule check before... Paul, are we having a show tomorrow? Because I didn't see...
I was going to ask you. I don't know if that was just going to be like a call-in show or are we taking a break?
I think we went through show, call-in show.
I think we went through the initial run, and I think you came up with a list of the, I guess, the next set of shows, but I don't know if that was given to the BMU or not. So
I did.
I don't think... Okay, so he doesn't have one on the schedule, so I don't know if we're going to do one tomorrow or not. It's
To be
just
fair, can you
call.
reach out to him because I'm at work all day and reach out to
Okay,
him?
okay,
Yeah.
all right. So, but he has the list that you sent him.
Correct. Tomorrow's supposed to be a
Okay.
Q&A, open show. Anybody can come to me and ask us questions.
Yeah.
Every 3 weeks I have a Q&A. So, like once a month pretty much. So, tomorrow's question mark. Wednesday, I have relationships. Why women make men change? That is a question of... I've been asked. A lot of people put this out there, and I think it'll be a good topic for us. And I'm gonna try to get a couple females. I'm gonna reach out to Leia Novo. I think she's offline, but I will reach out to her probably tomorrow and see if I get a couple women on that panel. I think it'll be crazy. Next week, oh, you're waiting for this one, Paul. This is a spin-off from our last Sunday show, Ninja movies. Which one is the good? Which one's the bad?
Wait a minute. I know you said on the show the 13th was going to be Kung Fu movies or Kung Fu cinema.
I can flip it. It's no big deal. So I have two back to back. I got the next week movies on ninjas, and after that week I have which martial art do you think is the best? So I can flip them either way. I will hit up Black David. Whatever you guys like. I don't care either way.
Yeah. Plus, I got to see if I can reach out to Mandrell. Maybe he can make himself available on the show because I think he really needs text him. That I honestly I can't answer that question out since I'm not a practitioner. So you may want to push that one off a bit so you can get some guys who can who really study the arts and treat it seriously and they can give their insight. I wouldn't feel right about giving my insight on that to be honest.
That's fine. The only other person I have that is available is Black David, but I have to reach out to him and see if he wants to do the show because I know he's very busy with BMU.
Right.
If not, at least we can have a conversation about it. If not,
Indeed.
I'll figure something out.
Okay.
So next week it'll be okay if we're doing the ninja movie, martial art movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just martial arts cinema because the ninja movie that's like a specific genre. Like remember those 80s Shokashuki, those 85 movies.
Yeah, you want to broaden it. You know,
martial arts. Yeah, just martial arts or Kung Fu Center or martial arts.
So pretty soon we won't even be able to say ninja anymore. You know what I'm saying? Pretty soon.
I do. Hey, listen, I'm not going to be available. I'm not going to be available next week, so I'm going to miss that. But I do want to just put a vote in there for you, and that is the Three Ninjas series. I think is about the best.
Kelly, I might flip this around. Let me talk to my guys. So I'll do it the following Sunday. Are you free the following Sunday, the 19th?
No, I'm away. I'm going to go see the eclipse in upstate New York next weekend, and then the following weekend I have to work. So the weekend of the 20th was when I'm back. And if you guys look up the Three Ninjas, it is a young kids karate. It's really. My kids loved it as kids, and it's
I
loved
it. I know about it.
I might have seen that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
But I'm just gonna vote that because I don't have any. I have no skin in the game. Three Ninjas.
All right.
So accept that, guys. As always, this was Grooming Reviews 101. I am Ghost Aspara. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time, stay fresh, stay safe.
Have a good week.